Hi guys, this is Sarah, and this is my senior portfolio presentation. So a little thing about me, excuse me, I'm a 4-year nursing student finally, about to graduate, woohoo, and I had a little extra help in 210 and 240, so I actually failed both of these, and having to obviously retake both of them. I don't regret, I regret failing, yes, but I don't, because it's made me such a better person, and it's just made me go over the basics of being a nurse, and then I really just, master those. Also, having to redo 210, I secured a job at 8 North on my floor that I work at now, which has, again, taught me how to be just an amazing nurse, and then really just, focus on those skills that are needed. I'm also fortunate enough to be able to go, or I was fortunate enough to be able to go to many communities around Omaha and the Council Bluffs area. So Fred Leroy Center, which was amazing to know. I didn't even know existed. And a lot of homeless communities that help with any health issues. I was also able to go to the behavioral unit at Jenny Ed, and it kind of just made me realize that we're all just fighting our own demons. It made me really open my eyes. We're not better than any of them that go to these places. So I like that a lot. And then the ICU, where I swear I saw someone that was going to die, and then 2 weeks later she walked out of the hospital, which was just so just touching and everything. So the topics that I'm going to be covering are the lack of education about the influenza vaccine, and then kind of just why I chose this topic. So I've been just really interested in vaccines, especially the first one that came out in 1798 was the smallpox, and then recently with just how heavy the topic about just vaccines in general is. People are just more eerie of getting them because they don't have the full story about the education behind it. So I was just wanting to try to clear the air a little bit there. Yeah. And then any personal connections. Excuse me. So I work on a COVID unit at the beginning, and just seeing people just say goodbye through iPads and just everything just killed my heart. And then knowing I hope there's a vaccine, and then sure enough there was, but just getting the education behind just the vaccines just in general is kind of hard. And then I have a couple friends that have medical conditions and they cannot get vaccinated with anything, and then they solely rely on herd immunity around them, which is crazy to me because you just rely on everyone else to get it, or you just feel helpless and hopeless sometimes. The first one is my effective communicator. So this I had contributed to a positive outcome that helped me gain effective, the great communication skills, background I was kind of dealing with. I had a visitor that thought that they were more important or as important as the patient, and I just had to just deal with that. And it was a very difficult situation because it was my first 6 months of becoming a worker on that floor, so I didn't really have that confidence or know how to tell them that hey, the patient is my main priority. And then I learned that dealing with people who see different from you is just inevitable. You're going to run into them anywhere you go. So just kind of how you deal with them in the sense. We cannot make everyone agree to you or the things that you do. I can use this in many ways to improve my communication skills, to talk about my issue. Just standing up for oneself. We're talking about vaccines, those who are against the idea of flu vaccines or others. Some of them can have negative comments to you about wanting the vaccines, and that's just, again, inevitable. People are entitled to their own opinions. It's just what you would do with that opinion and how you want it to affect you and how you let it affect you. The second one is my third one, and it was kind of just over the whole opioid use crisis that's happening in America right now. So seeing this, just like the lack of education kind of behind opioids, and then therefore like tying it in with vaccines, just doing your like research and finding just new ways to stop like the opioid crisis, but then again moving it into more the vaccines, like how can we get more people to like get the vaccines versus what old ways worked like before and what were more prominent before, and how we came to this like situation. So a reflective individual. So again, year 3, I did My Sister's Keeper, which is about a young girl that gets terminal cancer. Excuse me. And ultimately dies, sadly. And the baby that the parents had to help this baby was made to help save the life of their child that got diagnosed. And then writing this paper made me realize that people don't ask to be sick. They don't expect it. They're not born, and like some of them you just don't know that they're sick until later on. It can happen to parents, grandparents, teachers, friends, your next door neighbor. So again, they don't ask to be sick, but they obviously end up becoming, and then some succumb to their illnesses. For vaccines, they just like solely rely for those mostly on like herd immunity, or those who can get it but then want other people to get it because they know it could like kill them, so they don't want it to like affect others, kind of. Just again, like the lack of education, and then that just made me just reflect a lot, because knowing that people could help save other people's lives and they just still choose not to, because I mean, again, my own opinion, for their selfish reasons, if they are able to get it. This plays a part of not solely thinking about oneself and thinking about the greater prize, again, potentially saving the lives of others. The second one, an elderly woman who broke her hip. She had more severe than moderate dementia. Saw in her eyes that I was actually my twin sister, which was insane. And then instead of correcting her, I just put her at ease and went along with the situation until discharge. Again, putting someone at ease just helps them just open up more, be themselves, and then just helps them just have an easier time in the hospital. And then this kind of ties in with the issue at hand, is having just a kind heart will make people want to listen to you and hear what you have to say. So having a soft heart, people might like listen to you more, because you're just easier to listen to and easier to like open up to and talk to. And then so just having people express like their opinions and like why either they are or against it. You can just kind of go from there, again, based off what side that they're on. For the change agent, I did the global environment project, and this kind of compares the culture and just everything about these countries, about the United States, to like a third world country, but you don't have to do a third world country. Given the differences in our world, there will be differences in like education and how certain like countries like run with their safety, and then so on. So other diseases can be more prominent and therefore a bigger issue for them. So like malaria is for like with Africa, and like the flu is with the United States, and then more like first world countries. And realizing that like our problems aren't the biggest problems in the world, and that we just like our education should be sometimes just more like not broad in a way, just like more like immunizations in general. It just could be very beneficial to them knowing about just like one or just two facts about the influenza that could just like change the way you look at it. So just keep those two in mind. the second change agent within the last year. I've had such an immense number of patients that I formed bonds with in many ways. The certain patient, he and I had a trusting relationship from the start, and he relied on me to advocate for him many of times. His legs started hurting him, and he kind of just had like simple signs and was found to have a DVT in his lower leg. I had him for 3 days in a row, so the third day he ended up finding one. With this, the patient was complaining. I learned to really listen. He was a relatively healthy man, and he just constantly just kept complaining, and I was like, oh gosh, like, why is he just keep complaining? Like, what's he talking about? But the more and more he complained, like, I knew, like, something was wrong, and I was like, okay, like, I need to actually listen. Many valuable lessons with taking care of him. I learned to listen to their complaints, and just because it could possibly be annoying for, like, others, it does not mean it's annoying for them. So with the vaccines, there could be, like, an actual reason. So, like, listening to their reasons on why they are not getting the vaccine. So, like, they could have Guillain-Barré or another reason why they can't get it or why they won't get it, or vice versa. So kind of just to, like, wrap everything up. So being able to just express my choice and my view is something most people do take for granted. We take for granted how we are entitled to our own opinions and how we can just be so informed with everything going on around us and, like, the world with just, like, the click of a button on the internet. And then having the right to be informed on what's going on and any new education that's out there for any sort of subject. And then obviously in this case, vaccinations. Again, it is our God-given right in this country for us to be able just to be, again, educated on this and possibly to get vaccinations. But in other countries, like, it's just only like a dream for them. I believe we just need to reflect on our beliefs with this issue as well as others. Know that people, or like in our opinions, can change, and then change is never a negative, like, aspect. And I feel like people do, like, if they change their mind, that's like a weakness in theirs. And then I think that's just like a strength, because you're strong enough to be like, hey, I was wrong. This is what I think about, and then so on. And then finally, knowing the respectful and right way to communicate with those will get you even further in life. So just knowing that, like, your opinion's not superior to others. Like, others' opinions actually do matter, and potentially if how they reword it and, like, the stuff that they have to back up could be better than yours. I know I kind of just said that, but, and then, so during my 4 years at Methodist, I have been engaged with critical thinking during each classroom discussion, clinical experience, and with the tests that were each given, with all the select all that apply. With the critical thinking, I was expected to follow through with many correct ways of applying the critical thinking, like with the vaccinations and such, in immediate actions. I was expected to follow through with appropriate skills of all sort, verbal, nonverbal, and then finally with doing this at once, I was expected to just treat others with the utmost respect and dignity, and just like accept their opinions and, like, have them just, like, speak their mind, and just not be afraid for them to, not have them be afraid, like, what they're, like, speaking of and about. And then with some difficulty, there's some, and ease, I was able to reach and go above and beyond with each of these priorities that were set by Methodists for me to become soon a Methodist grad. And yeah, thank you guys so much.